Welcome to Krown Countdown U, coming off another magnificent Vanier Cup. We've been on quite a run since 2011 in the national final in terms of drama, excitement, and well-played football. And here's Ryan Sullivan to tell you all about the 51st edition of the national championship.
Jimmy, that game in 2011 was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Vanier Cups of all time. However, let's not discredit last year's dramatic finish that saw the Montreal Caravan block a field goal that would have given the McMaster Marauders a 2-point lead in the final minute. Montreal, of course, went on to win its first Vanier Cup title last year. Would they need some last-second heroics once again this time around to win yet another title? Well, off to Quebec we go to find out. A crowd of 12,557 on hand at Peps, with many of the supporters in attendance supporting the boys in blue and blanc. The Caravan having won their first Vanier Cup just 1 year ago, looking to make it number 2 in just as many years, while UBC were looking to take the Vanier back to Vancouver for the first time since 1997. Did I mention our very own Sean Olsen was the T-Birds QB back then? All right, first cue, here we go, and it's Olsen's alma mater striking first, UBC's very first drive, and the results are in. It's a three-banger from 45 yards out, courtesy of Quinn Van Gilswick. He'd be key as the game moves on. Next T-Birds drive, QB Michael O'Connor gets back into the MTL zone, only to get halted short of the end zone. So Van Gilswick cleans things up again with another three-banger, this one from 33 yards out. It's Van Gilswick 6, Montreal 0. Last minute of the quarter, Gabriel Cousineau gets picked by Dylan Chapdelaine, which puts UBC at Montreal's 33-yard line. So UBC starting off the second cue with some great field position, and they make it work. O'Connor to Marcus Davis. Are you kidding me? How nice of a toss was that from the Rook? A perfectly placed ball that extends the T-Bird lead to 13. Just minutes later, O'Connor's golden arm strikes again. He airs this one out for Will Watson. That's a 36-yard pickup. That leads to yet another Van Gilswick field goal, this one from 43 yards out. The flock of T-Bird supporters in attendance, they're loving it. UBC's lead now 16-blank, but the Caravan catch a break. O'Connor, deep in his own zone, fumbles the leather. Jonathan Boissonneau-Guillaume pounces on it for Montreal. That's a turnover. 4 plays later, Cousineau shows off his touch, placing the ball between two defenders beautifully. Guillaume Paquette with a beauty of a grab. Finally, Montreal on the board. They'd add a field goal before the break, and we head into the poutine break with the score 16-10 UBC. Third cue, and it was time for the banger show to begin. Brandon Deschamps, who's also known as Banger, takes the rock from the Montreal 44, and he says, "Get out of my way." Deschamps takes it to the house, and just like that, the T-Bird lead is back up to 2 scores. Blake Nill is loving it, as do these guys. Of course these guys approve. Montreal would add another field goal to narrow the gap to 10. Under 3 minutes to go in the queue now. Cousineau tosses a deep ball that Louis Matteau Normandin comes down with. That leads to another MTL field goal, and suddenly the T-Birds lead is down to 7 heading into the final cue. First drive of the cue for the Caravan. Sean Thomas Erlington gets stripped of the ball by Stavros Katsantonis, who showed some great athleticism securing the turnover, but the T-Birds go 2-out. Montreal capitalizing on their next drive as Cousineau caps off a 9-play, 88-yard drive with his 6-yard major to Simon Nadeau Hughes. The Montreal faithful, they are fired up, as of course is Nadeau Hughes. We got a tie ball game on our hands. Under 2 minutes to go, disaster strikes for the T-Birds. Birds back in field goal territory, but they botch it. Montreal sideline going crazy. They know they just dodged a massive bullet, but just 2 plays later, Cousineau's pass goes off Paquette's fingers and right into A.J. Blackwell's hands. A massive turnover for the T-Birds, and just 5 plays later, with the final second ticking off the clock, Van Gilswick nails the game winner from 20 yards out. As he does the celly that will be remembered for years. The 26-23 win completes the dream season for UBC as Blake Nill and the young T-Birds win the Vanier Cup for a 4th time in school history and the first time in 18 years. O'Connor wins the Ted Morris Memorial Trophy as the game's MVP, being just the 2nd rookie quarterback to lead his team to a Vanier. Katsantonis took home the Bruce Coulter as the defensive MVP after racking up 6.5 tackles while forcing and recovering a key fumble. The UBC Thunderbirds go from 2-6 to Vanier Cup champions in just one season. Absolutely incredible. So there you have it, the final scoreboard of the season, and what a year it was. Yet another fine CIS football year in the books. Congratulations to the UBC Thunderbirds on the win, and of course, a tip of the cap to the Montreal Caravan on 2 fantastic seasons. Well, last Thursday night, before the big game kicked off on the weekend, the CIS handed out some of its hardware at its annual All-Canadian banquet. And for a second consecutive year, Andrew Buckley from the Calgary Dinos took home the Heck Creighton Trophy as the National Player of the Year. Buckley finished first in the nation in passing yards with 3,162 of them, which also set a new CIS single-season record. John Rush from the Guelph Griffins took home the President's Trophy. The fifth-year linebacker led the nation in tackles and tackles per game. Rush is the first ever Griffin to win the award. David Onimata from the Manitoba Bisons is the 2015 JP Metras Trophy winner. The nose tackle out of Nigeria is the top-ranked CIS player on the CFL's latest Central Scouting report. The Peter Gorman Award winner is Matthew Betts from Laval, the Rouge et Or defensive end, getting it done. He led the nation in sacks while setting a CIS record for sacks by a rookie. And Wayne Harris Jr., in just his first year at the helm of the Calgary Dinos, is the Frank Tyndall Trophy winner. Harris Jr. led the Dinos to a perfect 8-0 season. Before we head into the break, here's a look now at the 2015 First Team All-Canadians. And here is a glance at your 2015 Second Team All-Canadians. Coming up, X's and Olsen analyze some of the big plays from last weekend's big game. Stick around.
Krown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Krown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of University football on Shaw. Krown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football.
Hey everybody, welcome back to KCU. It's that time again in the show where we get into the X's and O's, and who better to break down the Vanier Cup than 2 Vanier Cup champions themselves. Here is Gord Randall and the coach, Sean Olsen, in the final installment of X's and Olsen 2015.
Thanks, Ryan, and welcome to this season's final edition of X's and Olsen. I'm Gord Randall, and as always, the coach, Sean Olsen. Looking back at the Vanier Cup, we've picked 3 key plays that we wanted to dissect from that UBC victory, and we're going to start with the huge third-quarter touchdown run from Brandon Shomps of 44 yards. This is a stretch run play to the right, and Coach, you want to talk a little bit about Montreal's formation and what UBC does to them here.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll take a look at what Montreal was doing there. Standing up on the defensive line, and to play the run effectively, you need to get your pad level low. We'll take a look right here to begin with. We've got one person in a three-point stance. Everyone else is in a two-point. They caught them in a little bit of a pass defense. You're going to see a simple stretch zone. You've got your fullback taking the front side edge to create an edge, and then you're going to have an extra player trying to flow over the top because of that edge that's created. Let's roll this clip forward.
All right, and pause. Okay, so you are going to see this is a stretch zone to the right. Vanier gets the ball right in behind where the right tackle started here. On the back side, left guard Ethan Sadowski and in behind him, left tackle Alec Pinnell have both hit the ground into what we call a cut block. Their job is to get their man on the ground, and they're going to create a seam that opens up between the front side blockers blocking the stretch run and the backside guys who have remained static. They do a great job here. Both of them get their guys on the ground. On the right side, Liam Haim, the H-back right here, has come up to seal the edge. He's going to move up to this linebacker, number 8 right here. And you get a double team between Dakota Shepley and Will Latu with Levi Hua, the center, going up to free to the middle linebacker. Let's roll it forward.
This is the same scheme that the Denver Broncos have made famous in the NFL. Runners like Terrell Davis, same result too. Big play down the field, finishes with authority, touchdown UBC. Huge momentum shift in the game, huge. Start of the second half. Montreal drives down the field, great drive, and they answer with a huge touchdown run.
All right, now we're going to look at a big fourth quarter touchdown from the Montreal Carabins that started to make the UBC Thunderbirds a little bit sweaty in the fourth quarter here. So we are going to look at this. This comes from about 7 yards out. It is a rub play, which is a key passing play for a lot of CIS offenses. Let's pull it apart, Coach.
Well, first off here, you got basically a 32 set. So 32 set, you've got 3 receivers here. We're catching this play a little bit late, and 2 to the top. You'll see in the later clip that they bunch their motion to force the UBC defenders to switch and create a little bit of a soft defender here from Katsatonis at the second level. Simple drawing under across the field. You're bringing another under here, looking to rub him, and then you're running everybody else off to take the free player in this defensive scheme out of the mix. Executed to perfection with an amazing catch at the end to get into the end zone. Let's roll it forward.
All right, now pause it right there. You're going to see the track from the UBC defender. This is Stavros Katsatonis, who's supposed to be man covering the Montreal receiver right there. His normal track is going to take him right over the top, and he would be right on top of this guy. But this little pile right here forces him to go all the way around and end up 2-3 steps behind the man that he's supposed to be covering here, which creates the separation. That's what we call the rub. And this guy right here does a great job of not only occupying 2 UBC defenders, but creating this huge mass and muddle for Katsatonis to go around and creating space for his guy there.
That's a great point, Gord. In the middle of the field, if they're not down at the goal line here, the path that he would take is over the top of that rub because yardage is not that important in the middle of the field. At the goal line, every yard is essential. So he has to take the path that you've outlined to get underneath there, and that creates the touchdown opportunity. Let's roll it forward.
There's a real nice pocket for Gabby Cousineau to see what's going on in front of him and make the throw. This is also a play that requires that man coverage from UBC to work. This is what we call a man beater. If UBC was in zone coverage, there would be another defender, probably the halfback on the other side, Kevin Weens, waiting to pick up Nadeau Pries as he crossed the formation here. An excellent play call by Montreal to take advantage of UBC's tendency to run man coverage backed up against their own end zone. Now, the last play we're going to look at is one of 2 big momentum-changing turnovers the UBC defense forced after that Montreal touchdown we just looked at. This one by Stavros Katsatonis is a fantastic strip to just pull the ball out of Sean Thomas Erlington's hands. Now, we're going to see Montreal run stretch run to their left here. They really did a good job getting back to the run in the fourth quarter. That led to the touchdown we saw, and they started to gash the UBC defense. But Katsatonis comes in by himself and makes a fantastic play here. Roll the clip. And you'll see Katsatonis 18 comes in by himself with the left hand and just rips that ball right out and then catches it before he hits the turf as an added bonus. And a spectacular play by a defensive back, Coach.
You're exactly right, Gord. This guy has been making amazing plays throughout the entire playoff run. He has been a huge contributor to the defense's turnaround, and this is a prime example. Now, both of these staffs work this drill on a weekly basis. Simple part of a turnover circuit, and they work it for moments like this. Let's take a look at this clip right here. You'll notice his hand is searching for the point of the football. That's textbook form. He will now grab that nose and rip backward with his hand using his body to torque. Again, textbook form. He's been well coached. As Gord said earlier, in the Vanier Cup, you saw Kevin Weens do the same thing. This is not happening by accident. Let's roll the clip and we'll take a look at the result.
And this is a spectacular play by Katsatonis. Typically, the second or third man in on the running back is coached to use this technique. Katsatonis takes a risk as the only guy tackling Sean Thomas Erlington here and rips at the ball. And that tendency to take risks is why Katsatonis has been able to make big-time impact plays for the Thunderbirds this playoffs. It paid off for him here. It led the Thunderbirds to a national title and was a huge play. That does it for us. Season 1 of X's and Olsen is in the books. Thank you very much, Coach. You've been a huge addition to the program.
Thank you very much, Gord. It's my pleasure.
When we come back, the panel assembles. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Krown Countdown U.
The CFL and our partners at Football Canada want to make sure we keep growing, promoting, and investing in a safe game. Football Canada now requires all amateur coaches to be safe contact trained by 2017. By creating a standard of safety for all in our football community, we're making an already great game even better. Make sure your youth coach is safe contact trained, because making a safe game means making a better game.
And welcome back, everyone. Another fantastic game, another fantastic event staged by the folks at Laval. And quite frankly, maybe the best story of the last 5 championships. Blake Nill and company got every ounce out of their 58-man roster. A team effort from the football staff and the alumni result in a national championship. Longtime viewers of this show know we are in BC, and I can say unblinkingly that this is the best sports story on the coast in the last 2 years. That includes the Canucks, the Lions, the Whitecaps, right across the board. So let's get to the game. Sean, I think we can say that in the RSEQ, they play the most physical game, but maybe they haven't seen speed like this. Did speed kill the Caravans?
Well, I think one of the things that it did do, it was their point of concern going into the game. They understood that UBC has some people that can fly on offense. They knew they had to account for it. I got the sense throughout the whole first half that they were concerned about that vertical speed. UBC went deep on the first play of the game. I think that reinforced that concern. And then after that, they were working the short game for the most part. I was very impressed with how UBC's receivers made tough catches in contested situations. But I think that threat of speed definitely resonated with the Montreal players and their coaching staff.
To me, this was much more about pinpoint passing from Michael O'Connor, who frankly, Coach, blew me away in this effort. And I'm super excited to see this guy play CIS ball for 3, maybe 4 more years at this point.
Why did Montreal not try to do more to establish the run in this game, Gord? Was it simply because UBC got to that early lead?
I think that's a factor. I mean, your guess is really as good as mine, Jim. One thing that I think might have played into it is when you're game planning for an unfamiliar opponent, one of the things that you can see open up more for you is the passing game when you're game planning for an opponent. Run game often comes down to a bit of a battle of wills. It's not as much tactical X's and O's, and I think that that's where the Montreal coaches may have overlooked what their advantage really was in the trenches in this game and fell into something where they could see what they thought opened up in the UBC defense and injected more of their coaching into the game plan.
Gord, I agree with you. I think there's a little bit of outsmarting themselves in this situation. I think UBC did get out to that lead. That played a part in the whole equation. I look at the stats from the first 6 runs, and 2 of the first 2 runs were actually 1 and 0 yards. So I think sometimes that reinforces a belief as a coach that they're stacking the box and they're trying to stop the run, which opens up those other opportunities in the passing game. I think also having a 5th-year quarterback plays into that sort of mindset. But I think when Montreal really started to get going in the second half, they started to get that run game going, and they committed to it, and they used the passing game as a complement. But I think they outsmarted themselves a little bit.
Let's go a little bit further into that second half, because I thought Danny Machocha and company made some really good adjustments in that second half to draw close and even tie the game up. What did they do specifically to adjust in the second half?
Well, I think Machocha, obviously, he's a well-renowned coach. He does a great job. He's had that program in back-to-back Vanier Cups. He's a smart guy. I think they got back to their roots. That was more so the case for their improvement than any sort of adjustments that I saw on film. They started to run the ball. They put the ball into their running back's hand. They allowed their O-line to tee off on the undersized defense up front from the UBC Thunderbirds. And I think on the other side of the ball, the Michael O'Connor wasn't quite as precise as he was in the early stages of that game to really continue those long drives. And I think it's natural to get a little tight. First time in 18 years getting into the Vanier Cup. You're going to get a little tighter as a freshman. So I think that was a combination of factors that led to that resurgence of Montreal in the second half.
I think you may have seen a little bit of jitters from the UBC front early in that second half. But another thing that was a factor for the Montreal defense was they were able to successfully create pressure with their defensive line front, much more so than they were in the first half. And that allowed them to sit back, keep stuff in front of them, and force UBC to beat them with short underneath stuff and the run game, which as we will see, eventually broke through for UBC, but was successful for a large part of that second half for Montreal on the defensive side of the ball.
I had a CFL scout tell me after the game that Michael O'Connor could be a third-string quarterback on half of the rosters in the CFL right now. Gabriel Cousineau is a fifth-year guy that CFL teams should really take a hard second look at, and Andrew Buckley is going to be back to the Stampeders camp in May. Are we finally seeing a wave of quarterbacks, finally seeing a wave that could break down the wall in the CFL?
Well, I don't think it has much to do with the quarterbacks or the level of quarterback or anything that's happening at the CIS level. There's going to need to be a decision made by the CFL and the coaches and the people that are decision makers at that level of football that these players need to be developed. They're not coming ready to play and start for your CFL team, but there is talent there. There are guys like Buckley and some of the guys you mentioned. O'Connor obviously has some big upside. Those guys can play football, but there's been guys in past years that could play football. So it's going to be a conscientious decision from people that are decision makers at the CFL level to commit to that cause, that the UBC quarterback or quarterbacks like that are going to get a true opportunity to develop at the pro level.
Coach, I think you're bang on with that point. We saw the first steps towards that with the program put in place where regional, local quarterbacks out of the CIS could go to training camp. Michael O'Connor actually did that last spring, and I think that was a step in the right direction for the CFL. But I'm with you. I'm a bit of a skeptic that this is going to be the big breakthrough. I've heard it numerous times over the last number of years. When Danny Brannigan signed with the Argonauts, Kyle Graves, Kyle Quinlan, Brad Sinopoli coming out, we thought that maybe those were the waves that would finally get it done, and nothing ever materialized. So it needs to be a big change on the part of the CFL to welcome these guys in. The one thing I will say, though, is based on the way Michael O'Connor has blossomed, particularly in the last month, he might be a game changer on that front.
As for Vanier, the event, over 12,000 in the park. That's pretty good considering the arch rivals were on the field. Where does it go from here? Laval wants to take a break on this thing. Is Ottawa a possible target? Could they take it back to Toronto again? Maybe this thing needs to get out of the province of Quebec for a while.
Yeah, I think Ottawa is a fantastic option. There's tons of history with holding the game in Toronto. And to be honest, though, I think that we are due for a game out west, not here in Vancouver, somewhere in the prairies. We talked about it being a hotbed of football. It's got great markets. Saskatoon has hosted in the past. Winnipeg, we just saw them put on a fantastic Grey Cup show on Sunday. I think there's a lot of potential for markets in the west, and they've got to find a way to get something in the AUS area. I don't know if the infrastructure is there, but they've got to find a way to rekindle the game, and a great way to do that would be to give them a national championship to host and see the game firsthand at the top level.
Gord, you touch exactly on the key. It's infrastructure. There's got to be a commitment from the people that are running these football programs in these markets, whether it's Ottawa, whether it's Vancouver, whether it's the Maritimes, to commit to the cause of running a Vanier Cup. It is no small deal putting that show together. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of volunteers, and quite often there doesn't seem to be the payoff on the monetary side for running the event. And I think if people are willing to commit to it, this game is a great brand of football and can be successful anywhere in this country.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of success with that in Vancouver in 2011. More talk of the 8-team national playoff, not much discussion about interlock. What is the right kind of change that we should be looking at moving forward into 2016? And will we ever have the right kind of change?
Well, I think the key here is that there is a separation happening in CIS football. There's a little bit of haves and have-nots. Teams with resources, teams without resources. And that is something that is going to be a very, very important thing to watch moving forward. I think whether it's 8, 10, 12, 6, whatever the amount of teams are, but people that are committed to football as a resource-driven sport, there are people out there right now that are committed to that cause are going to have to separate because it just isn't a fair playing field right now for a lot of the teams that are competing in the CIS. And I think that's where the direction of the Northern 8 or whatever you want to call it is going to go eventually.
And I want to pick up on that point. I would like to see the implement of a Major League Baseball style luxury tax where the top teams pay more into a universal travel fund for their conference to help promote teams moving outside of the conference and creating some of these interlock games. Because the fact of the matter is that the reason we don't see interlock now from a lot of teams is it's just not feasible. The Western teams are always willing to do it because they have to travel anyway, and the teams in the other conferences are usually not so much because they just don't have the money in their budget. If you were to put a luxury tax, take note of the operating budgets that teams run with and tax the teams that spend more on their program, more in terms of league dues, then I think you'd go a long way towards leveling the playing field in this conference.
Okay, folks, that does it for football season, but that does not stop us. We will have some exciting news coming your way for the winter and spring for this show. That's all we can tell you for now. So stay tuned for news there. So for now, let's get out to some well-deserved rest, and we'll see you in January.